All right, money accelerator lesson for the day, lesson for myself. These are good for me to remember, the things that I've been taught by smart people. We're going to talk about maximizing investments. So let me be clear, I'll give you three main points. When I say investment, everything is an investment. Now, I know that I don't literally mean everything. I don't mean like rocks and air or something like that. Although you could argue air eventually is going to be an investment. They're going to be buying and selling fresh air. They're already doing that in Japan. Water is going to be a big commodity. The guy who did The Big Short, who made over $1 billion investing in the stock market against the housing crisis, if you've seen the movie The Big Short, he's now investing in water. He thinks that's the next big thing. So everything is an investment. Your time is an investment. Stock market is an investment. Your business is an investment. Real estate, your 9-to-5 job, if you have one, is an investment of your life. So I want to be clear when I say investments, because so often our brain goes to some Wall Street trader, going buy, sell, and all this kind of stuff, or we think of just real estate. So this is a principle that we're going to apply today to anything related to money. Okay, so your income, your time at work or in your entrepreneurial venture, every one of these are the topic of today. And the number 2 principle, I just wanted to set that because sometimes people go, what's the best way to capitalize and maximize my real estate investment, my entrepreneur, my 401k? Well, this is the answer, my best answer to myself. Number 2, it's this basic principle, double down on what's working. But you'll see, number 3, there is an exception. You can't completely do this, but you kind of do this. Double down on what's working. So, biggest mistake I see with people, I've seen this so many times I've lost track. People have one thing that's done well, it's paid the bills, it's made the money, and they got bored of it. Okay, be very careful of getting bored of things because you often throw the baby out with the bathwater. You often get rid of something that you didn't need to get rid of, thinking the grass is going to be greener. So double down on what's working is the most important tool to remember. So if you've made a lot of money investing in tech stocks in the stock market before, you might want to do that for the rest of your life. Doesn't mean you'll invest in the same stock. I'm talking about the general industry. Warren Buffett started, we're going to start today's talk also by going straight to the top. For those of you in the 67 steps, that's one of the 67 steps. If we go to the top of investing, who's made the most money with the least amount of risk, they call that alpha, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. They built a $300 billion company starting in the 1960s. What has their principle been? Kind of like this. They call it something else. They call it sticking to what you know. Same thing. Okay? They figured out how to invest in kind of what we call consumer good brands like Gillette razor, Coca-Cola, Geico. Things that everyday ordinary people buy, but they're brands. So they don't invest in like commodities like corn or something. Everyday people are using corn, but it's not a brand. And that's pretty much, they've been doubling down on that since the 1960s. And if you invested $10,000 with Warren Buffett in the 1960s, you now have $50 million. That's how well this basic principle you're learning today has worked over 50 years through many recessions. You had stagflation and oil crisis in the 1970s. You had high interest rates. You had there was a catastrophe in the savings and loan industry, banking industry in the 80s. You had recessions in the 1980s. You had then the 1990s and the early 2000s. You had the bubble in the stock market, 2008, we had a recession. So all these recessions, this principle has kept working for Warren Buffett. Now, that's not to say they've done it perfectly. There is no perfect investment. Everything, gold is now at an all-time low per troy ounce. Real estate has gone up and down. People made a lot of money in 2006 and they lost it all in 2008. But yet, people who had stuck to the real estate industry through thick and thin like Warren Buffett, committed to something and then continued to double down, they had the skill. They weren't newbies. Newbies are the ones who got hurt in 2008. Newbies are the ones who got hurt in 2001. But notice, Microsoft, Apple, they made it through 2001. Their stock might have gone up or down, but they had a tried and true business model that pushed them through hard times. So what's working in your life right now? It could be something small. It could be if you have a 9-to-5 job. It might be you just need to get promoted within that job. Or if you're going to quit and work someone else, work for somebody in the same industry. Now, I told you there's an exception. So number 3 is you want to double down on working, but remember what has been working could stop working. This is not an absolute guarantee. This is just the best odds. When you play poker or backgammon or any game of fate, chance, our life has an element of fate and chance outside of our control. You can take the best action and still, more people get killed by things falling from airplanes than sharks every year. You could be walking down, living the perfect life, and a piece of metal falls from an airplane and you die. So there's always an element of fate. So what you can never guarantee your investment will work well. But if you had to bet on what's been working or not working, you want to bet more on what has been working. But there's the exception. You must continue to throw out some experiments, or maybe not throw out, wrong word, to test some new concepts. So let's just see, how would this work in real life? If you've been a real estate investor for 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, and it's paid the bills for you, you want to continue the real estate thing. But what happens if something goes horribly wrong for you in real estate? You want to have some other side tests. We could call this experiments. We want some of them running in the background so that if you had to make a change to something new, you've already begun to build some momentum, some expertise, some skill in that new area. And this will also, for those of you in the PASE system that are more action-based, you love to do new things, you need to deal with that in a way that you feel good about. You can't just say, I'm never going to do something new, because that's what Warren Buffett did. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are peas. They're practical. They're okay with doing boring businesses for the next 50 years. They don't care if they own insurance companies. They're happy. In fact, they like boring businesses. They bought a clothing line, but they didn't buy American Apparel. They didn't buy Victoria's Secret. They bought like a boot company that has this like worker boots and stuff. So you might not have that personality type. So you might get bored a little. I get bored a little more. So I got a little experiment running now. I bought a piece of land. I bought a farm in Virginia. Going to do some experiments building. Some of my Amish friends are going to build, and I'll be a partner in this, some sustainable housing. I lived about 4 or 5 years in a mobile home. They're not very nice. They're cheap. If a tornado comes, they blow away. So these would be like replacements for people who can't afford a really expensive house, a 200 grand house. We'll build these houses for like 50 grand, but they're quality, nice wood, custom built, yet still cheap. So I don't know if it's going to work. What I shouldn't do is take all my time, because everything's an investment, including time, all my money, all my staff, and say, hey, let's stop doing what's working. Let's refocus everything on this 16-acre piece of land in Southern Virginia. And that's what a lot of, I know this sounds crazy, but you can't believe how many people do that. Okay, let's jump. You know a guy who did this? Michael Jordan. And I'm not criticizing him because he's maybe the greatest athlete of all time. Far be it from me to criticize him, but he quit basketball completely. And Phil Jackson, a very wise man, said to him, you sure you want to completely quit? Why don't you do a little on the summer? Why don't you go play a little baseball in the minor leagues? See if you can keep up. But Jordan did not listen to his coach. Jordan usually listened to his coaches. He's famous for being the most humble person listening to coaches. But on this specific thing, he did not double down on what was working for him, which was basketball. Basketball had made him the most famous athlete of his time. And he just quit cold turkey and went and played baseball. And it did not work out. He was not good at baseball. He was a subpar professional baseball player, minor league. So like I said, I'm not going to criticize him because he's the man, but you know, he could have doubled down and kept playing basketball, but then in the summer, tried one summer to play a little bit of baseball. And then he would have known without having to go cold turkey and lose a year or two of momentum. He won 6 championships, but had he not quit, he probably would have won 9 or 8. You know, it takes a while to come back from that. So for each of you, be careful of not doubling down on working. But for those of you who are a little too practical and you just stick with the same thing, sometimes what's been working will stop. If you read this book, The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, he talks a lot about, you know, the past doesn't always predict the future. There are times when what's been working blows up and don't work at all. So here, I highly recommend that you get some new experiments going, but small scale. Like, I bought this small farm. It wasn't very expensive for me. I got an alternate plan. If this housing, little building these little homes doesn't work, I'll rent out the house. It has a house on it, and it's not, you know, if it doesn't work out exactly as my hypothesis, it's not a game changer. I haven't invested all my time and everything into it. Okay? So, 2-part question to complete today's lesson. Number 1, what is working and how can you double down? Practical. So for us, I'll give you an example of doubling down. We built Knowledge Society. We built the 67 steps. People seem to like it. We got a lot of people buying it, a lot of 68,000 or so positive comments and stuff, interactions. So I said, let's try another program. They liked that. A lot of people were saying, could we do one on business? So we built the accelerator. We started in beta. Seemed like it was working. But now you can see I have some experiments completely unrelated to education. Maybe the education business won't work out for us. Maybe, you know, we have to shut it down eventually. Well, I got some experiments running in completely unrelated businesses on a very, very small scale to start building my expertise very slowly while I focus most of my investment of time, energy, staff, money, and focus on what is working. So what's your thing that's working? Give a little quick explanation. And how can you double down on it? That's question number 1. You got to complete these to get through this program. Okay, it's important you do this homework. 60% more likely to benefit from the program if you participate. Number 2 thing below, what's an experiment you're running or could run on a very small scale to start testing the waters in some backup plans for your investment. For those who invest in the stock market, if you've done very well and you understand investing in large cap stocks, keep investing in large caps, but maybe you're like, but I wonder what it would be like to do commodity trading or to trade options. Do a little bit of your money into that. I call it your Las Vegas money. Just enough money that if you lost it all, it wouldn't be a disaster. Like my experiment with this farm, if I lost it all, it didn't work at all. It's not a big investment. It wasn't a $10 million farm or something like that, okay? So what's your number 2 little experiment and how can you run it in a small scale enough that if it doesn't work out, it's fine, but if it does, you could keep doing a little bigger, doubling down, just like in blackjack. Okay? Leave that below. That will complete today's money lesson. Talk to you guys soon.